The mysterious case of Saujanya. On October 9th, 2012, in Darasala town, Belthangri, at precisely 7:30 a.m., Saujanya left home without having breakfast, heading towards SDM College in Uzur. That morning, the preparations for her tiffin were slightly delayed, so she left without it. Later that day, at 3:55 p.m., she boarded the college bus to return home, which departed at 4 p.m. After getting off at the Offala bus stop, she started her 20-minute walk home. At around 4:15 p.m., the security guard of Prakriti Hospital noticed Saujanya walking along the path towards the Netravi Bath Pier. Around the same time, her maternal uncle, Vidhul Goda, drove by in his Jeep from the opposite direction and saw her. He briefly stopped for a short conversation. This was the last time anyone saw Saujanya alive. When Saujanya did not return home by 6 p.m., her mother grew anxious. Her father was immediately informed, and he began reaching out to Saujanya's friends, assuming she might have visited one of them. However, none of them had any information about her. Her classmates confirmed that she had left for the bus stop as usual and should have reached home by then. As darkness deepened, worry spread across the village, and by 7 p.m., nearly 300 people had gathered to search for Saujanya. They scoured every street, alley, and possible hiding place along the route from the bus stop to her home. Despite hours of searching, there was no trace of her. At 11 p.m., her distressed parents, along with other villagers, reported her disappearance at the Belthangri police station, providing her photograph. Initially, the police hesitated, but under public pressure, they filed a complaint. However, they stated that if Saujanya did not return by the following day, they would officially begin the search. Heavy rainfall that night made searching even more challenging, delaying further efforts until morning. The next morning, on October 10th, 2012, villagers resumed the search. After 2 hours, a horrifying sight awaited them. Under a dense bush, the lifeless body of a young girl was discovered. Her hands were tightly bound to a tree with a blue cloth, her clothes were disheveled, and her body bore multiple injuries. The most chilling detail was that her face was concealed beneath a thick layer of soil. The tragic scene revealed that this was, indeed, the body of Saujanya. Strangely, despite the torrential downpour the night before, neither her body nor her belongings, her bag and books, were wet. This suggested that she had been murdered elsewhere and later placed at the crime scene. Shocked villagers noted that the location was just 10 minutes from her home. Near the crime scene, her missing slipper and a foil wrapper were also found. The gruesome discovery ignited outrage among the villagers. A collective demand arose to find the perpetrator and ensure that such a heinous crime would never happen again. A new twist emerged on October 11th, 2012, when 5 villagers captured a suspicious man and severely beat him. He was accused of assaulting Saujanya. Allegedly, he was the last person seen near the crime scene at night. When confronted, he attempted to flee, but after rigorous questioning, he reportedly confessed. However, despite more than 12 years passing, justice remains elusive. The case was handed over to major investigative agencies like the CID and CBI, yet no significant breakthrough has been achieved. Many believe this is not merely a crime, but a cover-up. Over the past decades, more than 400 similar cases remain unsolved, with crucial evidence being ignored. Of these, over 90 cases involve young girls and women, whose voices were either silenced or erased. The case of Saujanya is a glaring example of systemic negligence. When independent journalists and activists attempted to bring attention to the case, they faced legal threats and censorship. Some reports and videos exposing the truth were removed under court orders. Those who dared to speak out faced immediate retaliation. One of the primary suspects, Santosh Rao, was a mentally unstable man from the small town of Srinari, Karnataka. He had been undergoing treatment for nearly 6 years before the incident. He had previously worked at a hotel in Srinari, but was dismissed. Days before Saujanya's disappearance, he arrived in Darasala, allegedly looking for accommodation. With no available hotels or lodges, he was reportedly seen staying near the Bahubali statue and Sri Manjunath temple. To this day, the truth remains buried beneath layers of bureaucracy, corruption, and power. The fight for Saujanya's justice continues, but the question lingers, will justice ever be served, or will her case become just another forgotten tragedy? On the evening of October 11th, 2012, at approximately 5 p.m., a man was sitting on the stairs when 5 individuals forcefully took him away and handed him over to police without any proper interrogation. The situation escalated when a teacher by profession allegedly slipped and got involved, creating further confusion. However, the reality was that a strategic game was being played to shield the actual perpetrators. Those who claimed to serve justice were, in fact, manipulating the legal system, weaving a web of deception to prevent their names from being revealed. Yet, as it is said, truth is not just about names, but also about the pain of witnesses. To understand the cover-up, one must look at the inconsistencies in Saujanya's autopsy. Her body was sent for a post-mortem at the Community Health Center in Belthangri on October 10, 2012. Typically, autopsies are conducted under proper lighting, but in this case, the procedure was carried out in dim and inadequate illumination. Her body bore multiple deep injuries, along with a 7-inch strangulation mark on her neck, likely caused by a nylon cord from a college ID card. Under normal circumstances, vital organs like the stomach, liver, and kidneys are sent for forensic examination, but in Saujanya's case, this was not done. Additionally, crucial samples such as hair, blood, and semen, which were supposed to be sent to a forensic lab immediately, were delayed. The police only forwarded the samples on October 18, 2012, 8 days after her death, when forensic analysis should ideally be done within 72 hours. As expected, the results were compromised, rendering the evidence useless. The role of the police in this case is highly questionable. Important forensic elements were deliberately ignored, and crucial evidence was either mishandled or disregarded. PSI Yogesh Kumar, who oversaw the case, failed to conduct a thorough investigation at the crime scene. No fingerprint experts were brought in, no professional crime scene photography was done, and vital samples were left uncollected. Santosh Rao, the main suspect detained on October 12, 2012, had 17 injured marks on his body. The police claimed that Saujanya had inflicted these wounds with her nails. However, the post-mortem report later confirmed that no DNA from Santosh Rao was found under Saujanya's fingernails. Furthermore, forensic examination revealed no traces of crime scene soil on Santosh Rao's clothing. His medical report stated that he suffered from phimosis, a painful condition that makes sexual intercourse difficult. This fact contradicts the accusations against him. Despite this, the police claimed on October 13, 2012, that Santosh Rao had confessed and led them to the spot where they allegedly recovered Saujanya's undergarment. However, Saujanya's mother and Santosh Rao's brother later revealed crucial details that suggested the undergarment had been planted at the scene by PSI Yogesh Kumar. The police made significant missteps in their investigation. They did not retrieve CCTV footage from the bus stand, which was merely 300 meters away from the crime scene. A piece of paper with 2 mobile numbers found at the scene was also ignored. Additionally, a wristwatch recovered from the crime scene was not sent for forensic examination. The police failed to explain why. Despite the heavy rainfall that night, Saujanya's body and books remained dry. More importantly, why were her classmates and teachers not questioned? DNA from 2 unidentified individuals was found on Saujanya's body, yet their identities were never investigated. It became evident that Santosh Rao was being used as a scapegoat to protect the real culprits. Even Saujanya's family refused to believe that he was responsible. The villagers were outraged, and under immense public pressure, the Karnataka state government handed over the case to the CID just a month later, in November 2012. However, since the police had already tampered with crucial evidence, the new investigation faced significant challenges. The CID re-examined witness statements, including that of Saujanya's classmate, Janvi Kanvi. She stated that on October 9th, at around 3:40 p.m., she boarded the KSRTC bus from college and got off near the crime scene at 4 p.m. Her testimony was critical, as she recalled seeing 2 unidentified men at the same location earlier that afternoon. One man was on a motorcycle, while the other stood nearby, discussing something suspicious. One of them reportedly said, Nothing can be done at this place. DNA samples found at the crime scene matched neither Santosh Rao nor anyone initially arrested. This pointed toward the involvement of other suspects. Saujanya's family firmly believed that the 5 men who first accused Santosh Rao were the real perpetrators. However, due to legal and political influence, their names were never fully disclosed. To verify the suspects' alibis, the CID cross-checked their passport, visa, and bank records. One of the accused, a prominent political figure's relative, was found to be out of the country at the time of the crime and was acquitted based on this evidence. Despite the CID's efforts, the real criminals remain unidentified, and justice for Saujanya continues to be an unresolved mystery. The remaining 4 accused in the case were anticipated to alter the trajectory of the investigation, yet the CID presented its findings in court, asserting strong evidence that proved they were elsewhere at the time of the crime. Consequently, all suspects received a clean chit. However, the most startling aspect was that neither the police nor the CID deemed it necessary to retrieve call records or tower locations of these suspects. Said DG Vipingopal Krishna, in a press conference, declared Santosh Rao as the primary accused based on alleged evidence. This led to suspicions that the CID itself was compromised, prompting the public to demand a CBI inquiry. Over the years, the incompetence of the CBI had come into question, particularly in handling 463 unresolved cases in the region, 95 of which pertained to young women. With over 400 pending cases, the demand for justice grew stronger. A year later, in November 2013, following immense public pressure, the case was transferred to the CBI for further investigation. However, the accused promptly sought refuge in the Karnataka High Court, delaying proceedings for months. On October 26, 2017, the CBI finally completed its investigation and filed a charge sheet under IPC Sections 376 and 302, continuing to uphold Santosh Rao as the prime suspect. Despite arguments presented in court, highlighting police coercion in extracting confessions and fabricating evidence, such as the so-called discovery of Santosh Rao's clothes and injury marks, the prosecution failed to provide substantial primary evidence. After serving 6 years in prison, Santosh Rao was acquitted of all charges on June 16, 2023. Today, he works as a cleaner in an ashram, attempting to rebuild his shattered life. The case had numerous inconsistencies, including the suspicious deaths of 4 witnesses within just 34 days, further raising doubts about foul play. The intricacies of this case reveal a deeply entrenched conspiracy spanning decades in Dharasthala. A pivotal figure in exposing this web of corruption was former police officer Girish Mathananavar, who once publicly confronted a corrupt MLA and subsequently resigned from his police service to distance himself from institutionalized corruption. Girish now leads a social organization dedicated to justice. Upon learning about Saujanya's case, he conducted his own independent investigation, uncovering a sinister pattern linking numerous unresolved cases from the past decades to a singular entity, an influential landlord. One of the accused in Saujanya's case was directly connected to this powerful landowner, who conveniently presented an alibi proving he was overseas during the crime. The remaining 3 accused were high-ranking trustees within the same influential circle. The overarching question remains, how did this landowner wield such influence that neither the police, CID, nor CBI could implicate him? The answer lies in the deep-rooted control of Karnataka's feudal system. The landlord and his family command vast political power and possess an extensive financial network channeled through a prominent temple trust. This particular temple, located in South Kannada, boasts an 800-year-old history and operates uniquely under private administration. Unlike most Hindu temples that fall under the jurisdiction of the Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowments Act, this temple is managed exclusively by a private Jain trust, completely independent of government oversight. Historically, the British implemented the Religious Endowment Act of 1833 to regulate temple affairs. But post-independence, most Hindu temples transitioned under state control, except a select few managed by private trusts. This situation is not a matter of religious or cultural heritage, but rather one of power dynamics, where an unchecked authority has led to systemic exploitation. To truly grasp the extent of this conspiracy, one must examine the silence cases buried within government archives. One such case revolves around Narayan, a temple servant from a lineage of devoted caretakers. His ancestors had served as mahouts, elephant caretakers, and in recognition of their service, the temple's founder had granted his family a parcel of land generations ago. However, with the rise of this influential landlord, Narayan's heritage came under threat. The discovery of a new highway project passing through his land exponentially increased its value, making it a prime target for acquisition. When Narayan refused to relinquish his rightful land, the landlord exercised his dominance, cutting off electricity and water supply to Narayan's home. On September 21st, 2012, a group of enforcers stormed Narayan's residence, issuing dire warnings and ultimately forcing his wife and children to flee in distress. This case, much like Saujanya's, underscores a harsh reality of power and corruption, where justice remains elusive and the oppressed are silenced under the weight of influence and wealth. The fight for truth persists, yet the battle against an entrenched system continues to be an uphill struggle. Now, Narayan and his 45-year-old sister, Yamuna, were left alone at home. On September 21st, 2012, a group of individuals forcefully entered Narayan's residence. In a horrifying act of brutality, they assaulted Yamuna in front of Narayan, then mercilessly stoned them to death. Their bodies were left in a gruesome state, making it easier for authorities to dismiss the case as a simple robbery gone wrong. The official report, crafted to align with this fabricated narrative, was conveniently buried in bureaucratic files, while the actual truth was masked under the seal of legal proceedings. Today, a luxury hotel stands where Narayan's home once stood. A significant detail in this case was that it transpired merely 20 days before the murder of the court's victim. Even in this incident, the Milthanger police attempted to falsely implicate Santosh Rao. The same Santosh Rao, who was wrongfully framed in the Saujanya case, was now being pinned as the culprit in the Narayan Yamuna case. The inconsistency in the police records was glaring. While the police initially stated that Santosh Rao arrived in Dharmasala for the first time on September 20th, 2012, in the Saujanya report, the same authorities documented that he first arrived on October 8th, 2012. Two conflicting dates for the same individual in different cases within the same month highlighted a deliberate attempt to frame him. Looking further into the past, we uncover another case of injustice from 46 years ago. In 1979, Vidavan, a highly qualified educator, was on track for a well-deserved promotion to the position of principal. However, when the principal seat became vacant, his junior was appointed instead, solely based on caste preference rather than merit. The school administration's decision was driven by favoritism, aligning with the interests of certain influential figures. Vidavan, unwilling to accept this injustice, stood his ground. At that time, Dr. Harali, a government physician, had left town for a seminar. No one could have anticipated the horrific tragedy that awaited him upon his return. As he stepped into his home that night, he was confronted with a devastating sight. His wife, Vidavan, had been raped, doused in petrol, and burned alive. But the injustice did not end there. When Dr. Harali approached the police to file a complaint, the tables were turned on him. He was falsely accused of his own wife's murder and imprisoned without a shred of evidence. For 3 years, he was denied access to the postmortem report and the FIR copy. To this day, 46 years later, justice remains elusive. The real perpetrators? They were closely connected to the school's administration, led by the same influential landlord. In 1986, another victim emerged, M.K. Devanda, a fearless leader of the Communist Party, who had gained immense popularity in the Dharmasala Panchayat elections. His victory, however, was unacceptable to the entrenched powers. Threats soon followed, escalating to an unthinkable tragedy. On December 22, 1986, Devanda's young daughter went missing. For 2 agonizing months, he searched desperately, questioning everyone, but received no answers. Then, on February 17, 1987, his worst fears materialized. Her lifeless body was discovered near a small stream, just 750 meters from their home. Yet again, the police conveniently closed the case, ensuring that no justice was served. The Saujanya case is not just an isolated story. It is a grim testament to how the truth is repeatedly silenced in the face of powerful individuals. The real question is, how long will justice be denied? This is not merely about one case, but about more than 400 unresolved cases that remain buried under layers of corruption and manipulation. The choice is ours to remain silent or to demand accountability. If we allow fear to govern our voices, the cycle of injustice will persist. The legal system is not just blind. It is deaf to the cries for justice. Truth is either bought, buried, or distorted beyond recognition. The question remains, will change ever come? Or will we continue witnessing fresh faces caught in the same vicious web of deception and suppression? They say the winds of change take only a spark to ignite. When the flames rise, they will engulf the entire city. Leave your thoughts, opinions, and comments about this case. Your voice matters in the fight for truth and justice.